It's all about striking the right balance between work and play. That's one of the key learnings already from Liam Bacon from Aradina. Welcome to the session, Liam. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Well done, and thank you for being on this session today. So let's get straight into it by maybe you sharing a bit about yourself, a bit about something about yourself and your business and what kind of services you provide.
Sure. So I started the company that I'm working with now about 2.5 years ago. Before that, I had a bit of a base in e-learning, like gamified e-learning. Did a master's in entrepreneurship at UCL, which is in London, and then started the current company about 2.5 years ago. Short elevator pitch on us is basically that we're looking to marry together unique and innovative game designs alongside disruptive technologies, particularly Web3 and AI tech. And that's to improve the user experience, but also to form competitive advantages in the business model. So I made a little note before, I think when we were speaking, just sort of saying that I think there's sometimes some misconceptions around Web3 tech, but
Hmm.
actually I think there's very clear ways in which you can make win-win scenarios whereby you can improve the user experience and also improve the business model at the same time, so both the users and developers can benefit from it.
Sounds great. Now, to a lot of listeners here today, a lot of the technical terms used like Web3 may not mean anything, which is absolutely fine because we're here to learn about your learnings as a business owner. One thing you mentioned during our conversation just before we hit the play button was around getting the right balance. Getting the right balance between being mindful and also being skillful and working hard at your business. And you mentioned that, hey, look, your successes were great when you had the right balance, and your successes can be hit when the balance is tipped to one side. Talk to us a bit about, as business owners, why it's important to get the right balance. And when we talk about having a balance, what is the balance? I mean, how do we be mindful, healthy, etc., outside of work, from your
Yeah,
experience?
yeah. So I was saying before, it's kind of funny because before I started this company, the company I did before was e-learning, and a lot of the skills that we used to teach was around like mindfulness and well-being and stuff like that. And then when I started the company that I'm doing now, within the
Mhm.
first few months, lost a lot of those habits and those skills. Things were very manic and chaotic, and sort of went into a mode whereby I wasn't particularly living that healthy, and the balance wasn't really there.
Mhm.
So there's a few key things I think are very important. One is trying to set like clear boundaries, both with your time, but also with other people as well.
Yeah.
I think when you're running a business, there's a lot of expectations for you to be available all the time. There's a really famous story about American Apparel that Ryan Holiday from Daily Stoic talks about quite a lot when he talks about how he essentially ran that business into the ground. And one of the big things that he did that he looks back on and thinks was crazy was that he had a policy whereby anybody in the company, there were a few thousand people at this point, anybody in the company could email him 24/7 or text him 24/7 with a problem that they had, and he would help to solve it. Sometimes he'd be like waking up in the middle of the night to like help someone solve a pretty minor problem in another country and things like that. And I think there's like, as a business owner, there's sort of like sometimes there's a almost like
Mm.
something to gain from feeling like a bit of a hero in the business, right? From trying to solve problems all the time and trying to show presence and be available all the time. And you want to show people below you that you're willing to work as hard as they are and stuff. But at the end of the day, building a business is very much a marathon, not a sprint. And that's probably been my main learning so far, is that sometimes you know would stay up all night working, and then it would actually impact the rest of the day or the rest of the week in a negative way.
Yeah.
And in the long term, that doesn't actually benefit. So really got to think about what's sustainable, what can you continue doing, what lifestyle can you live for the course of at least 3 years, maybe five, maybe seven, maybe 10, depending on how long your business goes for. But if your lifestyle is something that you can't actually engage in for more than a month at a time before burning out, then you're not going to be a great business owner over the course of 3 to 5 years.
That's a brilliant way of putting it. Can you engage in your lifestyle for a month? If you can't, it's not going to work for any longer than that, is it? It's a good way of just keeping it simple, really. Try it. If it doesn't work, you've got to change something major in your life.
Yeah, if you're feeling like at the end of every month you're like, "Oh, I need to take a long weekend and get away from this because I'm so stressed, I'm so burnt out." Like, and if it happens like once or twice, then yeah, that's fine.
Mm.
It's always gonna have problems in a business whereby you're really struggling to stay resilient and you're maybe struggling. But if it's like repeating every couple of weeks or every 3 weeks or every month, where it's like you're consistently feeling so run down that you can't feel like you can't continue and you have to sort of get back,
Yeah.
um, and then something needs to change, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So refreshing to hear that from somebody who's relatively young in business themselves. You've been in business for about 2.5 years now. But you're a groundbreaker, essentially. You've got a new business idea, something that's quite innovative, something which a lot of business owners want to do, i.e., come into a market with an innovation, but sometimes can be a bit apprehensive to do, come into the market and create an innovative product. Can you maybe share your advice to business owners who are looking to come into the market space in any kind of sector, anywhere, and come in and just be a bit of a go against the grain and innovate?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's a simple one-liner for me here, which is innovation is not about the technology that you're using, but it's about the problems that you're solving. And this has been a
Mm,
huge problem in the space that I've been in. So when Web3, which is like a lot for a lot of people recognize it's like blockchain tech came into the industry, and we had a lot of DeFi and then gaming came into space as well. So like blockchain gaming, there was a huge amount of funding that came into the space a couple of years ago, and there were a lot of people raising capital on the basis of these ideas and the visions that they had.
mm,
But a lot of the companies really weren't using the tech to solve any problems. Like they were throwing technology at problems that don't necessarily exist. So you have to really, really understand your user, which is like principle number one in building a
mm,
new startup. Really, really understand your user and really, really understand what problem you're going to solve, because you can't just innovate by introducing new technology into a market without understanding specifically what problem you're solving with it and how you're going to solve it and how much pain the user's currently in. Like
mm,
one of the first things you need to do is work out, okay, let's say there's a pain point for the user around this. How are they currently solving it? Because normally you'll find that they'll have some sort of alternative solution. It might not be ideal and it might not be what they want, but they'll have some sort of makeshift way where they get around the problem in their life at the moment. And you can kind of look at that and think, how much effort are they currently putting into solving this problem already? Because if they're putting tons of effort into solving this problem themselves, and then you can
mm.
probably guess that they're in a lot of pain. And there's a good space there to innovate to help solve it.
Brilliant. So it's not about the technology that we're using, it's more about the problem we're solving. And if we can solve the problem using minimal technology, that's fine. But the key question is, are we solving the problem, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly that. And I think that sometimes there's this people can get quite married to their product or their solutions
Mm.
without actually understanding what problems they're solving. So like sometimes I think it's been a big change in the last couple of years with like or the last 5 years with the lean startup model that's come through. There's been a lot of like books and papers and things like that published around that, and it's been practiced a lot as well. And that's changed things. It's really introduced the concept of customer development and getting customers into the process as early as possible. But before
Mm.
then, and also still now, there's a lot of people that develop products or services for a very long time and spend a lot of time and money on doing that before ever testing it with their first customer, which is like you don't know how anyone's going to react to something until you actually make it live.
Yeah.
So my number one advice would be to bring customers into the process as early as possible, even if it's not a product, just like even getting their feedback on the initial idea, like write a white paper, write like a 5-page document on what you're doing, how you're innovating, what problem you're solving, and get it to people you think will want the problem solved, and get their feedback, because you might find out like actually people don't really care about this, which is kind of the unfortunate truth of a lot of people who try and innovate in any space
Yeah.
is they spend a lot of effort on it and a lot of time on it, and then they realize, oh, I spent all this time building this and no one actually cares that much to buy it.
Exactly. No one actually cares that much to buy it. And it's one of those things which ties back to a one-line summary of that is to fail fast. Quickly go out there, get the product, and just fail quickly because then you find out, hey, look, is it worth climbing up this tree or do I need to look for a different one to climb up?
Yeah, I think that there's a good phrase related to this whereby you should be very strict about your vision, but very flexible on how you get there. So let's say, for
Mm,
example, like, maybe I would say like our vision is to improve player experiences in gaming, right? Really, really broad,
yeah.
open. But then how we get there and the pivots that we make along the way are many. So like the concept that we originally started with 2.5 years ago, is so different to what it is now. Like we've pivoted multiple times in terms of the product that we're building,
Okay.
based on user feedback, and you kind of have to do that as you progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you, as a relatively small new business, to kind of pivot so much in the last 2.5 years, it's quite a skill to have. I mean, there are plenty of business owners out there who need to pivot their business but don't know where to start. How do I go about changing my business around? Sales are falling, customers are going to other places, competition's taking over. Can be of can often be quite overwhelming, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think the number one thing there is speak to your customers, or if it's an internet business, speak to your users and find out why are they leaving, why are they going to competitors, what are the competitors doing better? Like find
Mm,
out what speak to them as much as possible and find out why they're leaving or why people are churning or why they're preferring competitors' solutions, what's better about them and things like that. It's kind of like the answers sitting right in front of you. You just got
mm,
to spend time with them and ask them.
absolutely. Just asking people for open, honest feedback. As I say, feedback is the breakfast of champions. Just go and have it. But moving on, conscious of running out of time, but I'd love to ask you the following question, which is, well, over the next 3 to 5 years, is going to be crucial for your business as the economy changes, technology changes. There could be some changes that may be required for your business. However, what do you think are going to be the top two challenges that you, as a business owner, may face over the next 2 years?
I think one of the biggest challenges that any startup faces as it goes from like that initial phase whereby you're doing a lot of things and you're working and like actually doing things to working on the business. So rather than like working on the things that the business is creating, let's say
Mhm.
specifically helping to build the product, helping to do the marketing, your focus turns more towards building the business itself. So like thinking about the company culture, thinking about the hiring strategy, things like that. It's
Very
a, it's
true.
a I think it's a real skill to be able to know when is the time and transition to a different role within the company,
Mhm.
especially because a lot of the benefits of making that transition you don't see for a long time. Let's say, for example, if I execute on a really great marketing campaign, I might see the results of that within a month. If I execute on a fantastic hiring strategy, I might not see the results of that for 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to get caught up in the things that are giving you fast rewards in terms of like, like your own mental perspective of it, compared to the things that are actually going to move the needle over the long run. I think the number one thing, in my opinion, and from my experience, but then also just researching into a lot of other business leaders and entrepreneurs that are way further ahead of the game than I am, is the importance of hiring the right people. And I feel like people who are listening to this would have heard this many times, but I just don't think it can be emphasized anymore that your business is just a byproduct of the people within it. Like, and you're just one person. So like no matter how great you are, if you're a company of 15 people, the people that you hire are going to massively outweigh the outcome of the business no matter what
Yeah.
you do. You can't do anything better with your time than making sure that the other 95% of the business and the people within it as great as possible. Like no matter what you're doing with your time, no matter how great you are, you won't be able to affect the outcome of that business any greater than by surrounding yourselves with really great people.
Absolutely sound advice, especially in this kind of an economy where everyone is busy. Well, all solopreneurs are getting busier as things move on. Hiring the right people. But there's also another saying out there, somebody far smarter than me once said, and that is, if you try to save yourself a wage, you cost yourself a fortune. So let's get the right staff members in the business right away. But you don't save yourself a wage, it doesn't cost yourself a fortune, and you start growing. So with that, let's wrap up over there. Liam, you've been absolutely amazing. I'm a breath of fresh air, lots of wonderful ideas, thoughts, and lessons shared during the session. Hopefully our paths cross again in the future. But in the meanwhile, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here and would happy to come back anytime.
Thank you so much.